Hi everybody and welcome to episode 3 of the Fix My Coaster Layout series, which is a collaboration between Brian Andrelczyk and I, where we take user-submitted coaster designs and offer suggestions to try and improve various elements like realism, flow, overall performance, and general aesthetics, as well as anything else in particular asked by the user. So in episode 2 we worked on a submission by the user QDude24 here. So I tried to make some improvements to the coaster kind of as it lay in the Mega Park which it was submitted within, whereas Brian here had a go at working on the coaster in more of a sandbox sort of approach. So he took the layout and just kind of made his own workbench for it to work on. And this was his final result. So Brian actually incorporated a proper swing launch using a few OpenRCT2 tricks, which is very much his forte. The submission we received was inspired by a Premier coaster called Icebreaker, so it was really neat to see Brian kind of stick with that. It's obviously something that he's very capable of doing. So the scenery, the layout. The layout itself, I think it's great. I think it's got a great mix of kind of swoopy corners, airtime hills, diagonal track. I also love how we kept the double launch of the original design. It's got kind of two halves, like the original. I love how after the second launch, it's got kind of a swooping climb as opposed to the first, where it's got kind of a vertical climb up into the hill. So it's a nice little point of difference there. There's some great water interaction going on as well. And I also really like the barrel roll on the second half. It just really helps distinguish itself from the first half of the layout, so I think that was really well done. The scenery also looks really good. It's a beautiful open area here with a great mix of curvy looking pathing. Particularly like the kind of boardwalk along the shore of the water here and just the first part of the queue line. There is a fairly heavy use of custom scenery going on here overall, which I tend to stay away from myself, but seeing something like this really makes you realize just how nice an end product you can end up with using it. So yeah, you can also kind of see that apart from the reworked scenery, the footprint of the coaster itself matches pretty well with the original layout. So it's kind of got that overall L shape. And I think Brian did mention that if you kind of plonk that, his new reworked layout, it does cover pretty much the same area as the original. So as well as his final attempt, Brian did show his first attempt at reworking the ride here. So although it was a nice layout, it didn't really have the same kind of L-shaped footprint or the same amount of swoopy corners, and is probably just a little bit less interesting overall. So I think he made a great decision to give it another shot. With his work over here. So yeah, really love the end product. Quite different to mine, where I just kind of stuck with the looping coaster track and the two conventional booster launches. But that's definitely been fun to see the contrasting building styles thus far in the series, and hope you've been finding that the case too. But anyway, let's move on to the next submission here. So the previous layout was quite a long one, and we're going to be looking at something a little bit more basic this time around. So here we have a Virginia reel called the Golden Fleece, which is right in the middle of the scenario Magic Quarters. And this was submitted by the user Ryan. Now what Ryan has told us is that he'd like to see it make a bit better use of the central mountain, and overall just make it seem a bit less intrusive on the overall landscape. So taking a look here, we've got some pretty good stats, like an excitement rating of over 7 is actually really good for a Virginia reel. Although this is a pay-for-entry scenario, we are less concerned about that, given that the rides are free. But if it was a pay-for-the-ride scenario, this could be a real moneymaker. I think this would have quite a high charge rate. So that's definitely a positive. There's lots of tunnels in the ride, and that's probably not surprising given that it's kind of involving a mountain. And that would actually definitely help add to the excitement rating. We've got a chain lift which is quite long, and it's also split just after the first few tiles here, which I'm not a huge fan of. I never like splitting the chain lifts. I think it's pretty unrealistic overall, so it's something I tend to avoid. But if we follow one of the tubs here, we've got basically just a pretty straightforward series of left-right turn combinations. If we turn off scenery and underground view, you can see there's a wide section that goes around over the pathing there, and then it finishes off in quite a hurry. Actually, it really does fly around those tight turns, which could be somewhat of a concern. It does come perilously close to that 2.8 lateral G intensity penalty, which it's not a bad thing, but it just doesn't look particularly good in my opinion. So yeah, I think overall the layout, it's a little bit messy, and although it does make use of the mountain quite a bit, it definitely doesn't take full advantage of it. As I kind of mentioned earlier, the chain lift is split, but it's also quite wide, and I think it could be brought a little bit closer into the mountain itself. And there's maybe just a bit of a general uneven distribution of track around the mountain, which I'd like to try and improve a bit there. And yeah, so I think there's definitely some things that can be improved. I think we can definitely tidy it up a little bit, and that's what we're going to have a go at now. Alright, now to start off with, we're going to be doing what we usually do, and that is remove the majority of the layout. Okay, so we basically raised the station platform up one level and brought it one tile further into the mountain. But we will keep the kind of original length of the station platform intact. So instead of splitting the chain lift like before, we're just going to do a tight turn and then get straight into it like this. Also turn on our ghost trains. Okay, so although it's going to be hard to do a completely realistic Virginia reel with the mountain, we can at least incorporate some elements of a realistic Virginia reel. So thinking some sort of switchback like this. Now, instead of having it going into the mountain, what I might actually do is bring it back a couple height units and just have it run down the face of the mountain instead. I think that'd be a bit more interesting. Something like that. Alright, now I think what we can do now is, well, I think we might have to just lower this 3D cinema. I'll fix the key line up for that later. Okay, so we're going to go back into the mountain here. Okay, now it's going to be kind of slow at this point, so I think we'll drop it down one unit here. Okay, now if we can't do a completely realistic Virginia reel, I think what we can at least do is make one that looks nice. And to do that, we're going to make some kind of stacked turnarounds. So we'll have two going along the side like this. And this will run along the face like the other side. And then we'll drop this down a couple. And have this kind of run by the station platform. And just looking at the speed of the ghost trains there, it looks reasonable. It's not super fast, but that'll increase when guests go in, so not too unhappy with that. Alright, so now I think we'll go. So far we've got a good amount of track on the kind of this side of the mountain and the other side with the switchbacks, so I think we need something over here. So we'll try and do that now. Okay. So we could drop it down a couple like this. But then I would worry maybe about the lateral G's on this turn here. If we just watch the train go around this. It's not actually too bad, but I still think I would like to keep it at 20, do the turnaround, and instead of going up, we will go down into a little dip, and then bring it back out like this. Okay, now we can basically bring it back around to the other side. I think we'll do some kind of little trench here. It'd be nice to keep some of the tunnels, but I don't want to go overboard because it's always nicer when you can see the coaster nice and clearly. Okay, so I think we'll go, it's at 20 around this area here, so I think we'll do a symmetrical kind of look to this side as well, except it will kind of have the base height one tile lower. So we'll go into our double, or into our kind of dip there. Back up to a height of 15. Have our tight turn, and then our medium turns out like this. And I think we can basically finish it off like that. Okay, so yeah, you can see that although these two sides aren't completely symmetrical, like this is running at a height of 20 and this side at 15, it does help kind of maintain the speed of the tubs a little bit better. So I think we'll keep it like that, and it's not super noticeable either. So I think we'll call this one done and give this a bit of a test. Okay, so just following along one of the tubs here. Carries good speed through the switchbacks, goes up that one height unit there, kind of crawls through that section there, but that's alright. It picks up a little bit there. Yeah, I don't think that's too bad. That's a good amount of speed there. Then we go into our dips. Then along the other side of the mountain. And I don't think there's any sort of lateral G concerns in the ride at all. I think we should see some pretty good stats there. Okay, so there's some pretty reasonable stats there. The max lateral Gs are much lower than the original design. The excitement ratings dropped off a little bit, but we can pick that up a little bit again with some added scenery. So yeah, I think what we'll do now is get stuck into some decoration. I'll also fix up some of the pathing for the 3D cinema, and yeah, just do a bit of general tidy up. So we'll get stuck into that now. Alright, so I think I'm going to call that one done. So I just added in a bit of a forest theme and made the mountain kind of a bit more natural and jagged looking. In hindsight, I maybe should have given myself a bit more room around the base of the mountain just by clearing out some path and a few rides. But at the same time, I did kind of want to stick to the challenge of building the coaster within the original kind of footprint of the original ride. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out overall. So looking at the stats here, I've got an excitement rating of almost 7.5, which is pretty good. The abundance of scenery certainly helps that, as well as quite a few tunnels. You probably also noticed that I knocked a bit of length off the switchback section here, because I thought it was maybe a bit too long, and also it opened up some space for some more theming. So we also bumped the chain lift speed up to 4 miles per hour. Looking at the costs, so I think we spent about $2,000 on the actual cost of the construction of the ride itself. I did make the mistake of modifying a ride that had already been opened, so that meant that the cost of deleting pieces and then adding them back in, it was more expensive than it needed to be, and I probably should have just started afresh, but don't think it's a huge deal. Landscaping was a pretty significant cost. Looking at the numbers there, it's looking like about 11-12 grand in landscaping costs, but it's all good. There was plenty of money available in the bank, so I thought we'd just go all out and go kind of wild. Anyway, so thanks to Ryan for sending in this design. I did learn after the fact that the Golden Fleece was actually a reference to Greek mythology, but it was a little bit too far gone by then, and just decided to kind of stick with a bit of a Wild West theme and almost a prospector sort of style ride. Thanks to everyone else that has already sent one in. We don't have a set schedule, but we will get around to all of the submissions eventually. If you'd like to get involved in the series, you can send through a coaster layout either in TD4, TD6, or SV4, SV6, or the new park format to fixmycoasterlayout@gmail.com. Make sure to include a couple details on the coaster, anything you want feedback in particular on, as well as your desired username. So make sure to go check out Brian's attempt at this coaster on his channel, and feel free to let us know your thoughts, comments, and any suggestions you might have for the format of the series going forward. So thank you all very much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video. Alright, cheers, bye.